Greetings. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is the Book Report. This is going to be a little out of the ordinary because today is a very special day for one of my listeners and also the guy who turned me on to the book I'm going to talk about. I have many listeners from around the world, but this is one guy I know and I've worked with in the journalism field. I have known him for probably more than about 35 years, I guess, and today he is celebrating his 84th birthday. His name is Bill, and he's a Texan, so let's call him Bill the Texan. And he's a good example of a guy that stays with the profession for decades upon decades, and also how you can know somebody and have nothing but contempt for each other's political and social views, but still, well, have a grudging respect for each other, and you tolerate each other, especially as you get older. And I'm going to be your age before I know it, Bill, but I want to wish you a very happy birthday and many, many, many more to come. And if anybody wants to send Bill birthday wishes, just go up to Substack, send a message, and post it there, and I'm sure he'd appreciate that. I thought of this book today because I looked on my bookshelf and said, Bill gave that to me way back when. I think it was in Colorado. And it's a work of science fiction. Now, like all good science fiction, or I should say great science fiction, it's about humans. And the aliens are just ways of dealing with issues. The book I'm talking about is Childhood's End by the giant of science fiction, Arthur C. Clarke. It came out in 1953, and I'm sorry to say it is no longer in print, probably because, well, it's up on Amazon's Audible and Kindle service, and there have been so many of these sold over the decades and decades, it's probably everywhere for next to nothing. Del Rey last printed it in 2001, and some hardcover edition came out in 2010. Anyways, you can find it. Now, why is this book so important? Well, good science fiction and good science is also tied a bit to mysticism. If you aren't familiar with Arthur Clarke, I would recommend you look him up. He's most famous for the book 2001, A Space Odyssey, which was made into a movie in 1969 by the legendary Stanley Kubrick. One of my favorites of his is another book I'll just mention, 2010 Odyssey 2, which is 1,000 times better than the movie, and we'll go into that some other time. Let's go back to Childhood's End here. This is a book that came out in 1953, long before we were having any ambition of going into space that was serious. And it starts off as what I call the traditional invasion movie, the traditional invasion story, the traditional invasion novel. You know what I mean? Everybody's just going to work, minding their own business, and then suddenly, ta-da, the spaceships come in and hover over all the cities. Maybe that's where that came from. I'm not sure if it ever appeared anywhere before he came up with this. But anyways, one day, the extraterrestrials show up and say, we're going to get you guys to stop killing each other, stop having wars, stop poverty, and all these other nasty things. And, of course, the human race, having no choice in the matter, says, yes, sir, and goes ahead and does it. One thing that's interesting in the book is it foretells a time when the racial minorities in South Africa would be abused, and they were talking about white people. This was back in 1953 when it was run by white settlers, and, well, it's interesting how this was prophesized because these days they are really suffering. In any event, the book does deal with the human race getting rid of its problems. But there's something else at work here. Are these really benevolent extraterrestrials, or do they have their own agenda? What's going to happen to humanity? Is the Golden Age merely something that's enticing us into something else? Is something bad going to happen? Is something unexpected going to happen? Well, of course, I'm not going to tell you, but I guarantee you this, the ending of the book is unlike anything else that has appeared in science fiction before or since, and that is unfortunate, and you'll see that, because it's how, when the extraterrestrials come, the human race finally has to throw off childhood and embrace an adulthood that has a future in the universe. It's worth reading. It's not a very long book. It's only a couple hundred pages. And you could read it in a day or a weekend, and you can really enjoy it. And I still have the copy that my friend gave me so many years ago, and I'll probably pass that on to someone soon enough. You can get it again up on Kindle. It's included in the Kindle Unlimited subscription. And you could probably find it in just about any used bookstore, if you can find a used bookstore these days, for probably a couple of bucks. It's a must-read if you have any respect for the genre of science fiction. And, of course, if you're an Arthur C. Clarke fan, and anybody in science fiction really would be, it's a must-read. Again, the book is Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. It came out in 1953. The last print copies, softcover 2001 by Del Rey. Hardcover came out from another publisher whose name I'm not sure about in 2010. It's available currently on Audible as an audiobook, which makes it a lot of fun, and on Kindle. And you could probably find it elsewhere, and maybe even order it from your local public library if they don't already have it. That's it for today. If you appreciate my work, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends and share with your enemies, unless they're science fiction fans, and then they could probably become friends. I can be reached at feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback@aureliancolumn.com. I'm up on X. My handle there is MICCAMPEN. That's MICCAMPEN. This podcast originates at Substack. My handle there is aureliancolumn.substack.com. Until we meet again, be good, be safe, be vigilant, and remember, keep reading. And happy birthday, Bill. Good day.